Hi, everyone. Let me ask you something that might be uncomfortable. What if you have been working on the wrong thing this entire time? You have done the affirmations. You have shifted your mindset. You have worked on your limiting beliefs. You have done everything the manifestation space told you to do, and yet the financial ceiling is still there. The scarcity still shows up. The same patterns keep repeating, no matter how hard you try to change them. Here is the diagnosis that nobody in the law of attraction space is talking about. The pattern might not be yours. Bert Hellinger, the creator of Family Constellations, discovered that financial scarcity, poverty consciousness, and money blocks are not just personal. They are generational. They are encoded in your family system long before you were born. And you have been trying to fix something at the surface level that has its roots several generations deep. By the end of this video, I am going to share the exact ritual I used to identify and break a generational money pattern that had been quietly running my financial reality for years. Stay with me, because this one is different. And if you are new here, subscribe now. The books that changed my journey and a free PDF on angel numbers are linked in the description below. I want to start with something that I think is going to feel very familiar, and I want you to sit with it honestly, without the spiritual bypass, without the positive spin, without immediately jumping to the solution. You have been doing the work, real work, not the casual, half-committed, I'll try this for a week kind of work. Genuine, consistent, deeply intentional inner work. You have identified limiting beliefs. You have worked on your mindset. You have practiced gratitude, done the visualizations, said the affirmations. You have read the books, watched the videos, applied the teachings of some of the most brilliant minds in the consciousness and manifestation space. And the financial ceiling is still there. Not in the same place it was. Maybe you have moved it a little. Maybe you have made real progress in some areas. But there is still this sense, this quiet, persistent, almost embarrassing sense, that no matter what you do, abundance beyond a certain point feels like it belongs to someone else. That financial freedom is always just slightly out of reach. That something invisible keeps pulling you back every time you get close. And here is what I want to say before anything else. That is not a personal failure. That is not evidence that the law of attraction does not work, or that you are not spiritual enough, or that you are doing something wrong. That is a clue, a very specific, very important clue about where the real root of the pattern lies. Because here is what Bert Hellinger discovered through decades of therapeutic work with thousands of families across cultures, countries, and generations that completely reframes the way we understand money blocks and financial struggle. The scarcity you are experiencing did not start with you. It started with them, with the people who came before you, with your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and sometimes even further back than that, with the experiences they had, the traumas they survived, the conclusions they drew about money, safety, and survival in a world that was often genuinely threatening. Hellinger developed a therapeutic approach called Family Constellations, a method that reveals the hidden dynamics operating within family systems across generations. And one of the most consistent and most powerful discoveries of this work is that unresolved trauma, fear, and scarcity do not die with the person who experienced them. They get passed down. Encoded in the family system, transmitted unconsciously from one generation to the next, not through deliberate teaching, but through something much more subtle and much more pervasive. Through patterns, through emotional inheritance, through the invisible but completely real transmission of a family's relationship with money, with safety, with what is possible and what is not. Think about what this means in practical terms. Your grandmother who lived through genuine financial hardship, who learned in the most visceral and immediate way possible that money was scarce and dangerous and could disappear without warning, did not just carry that experience in her own body. She transmitted it. Through the way she talked about money, through the decisions she made, through the emotional atmosphere she created around financial topics, through the beliefs she passed to your parents who passed them to you. And by the time those patterns reached you, they had become so embedded in your family's emotional DNA that they felt like reality, like the truth about how money works, like an accurate description of what is possible for people like you. Not because they are true, but because they have been true for your family system for so long that the distinction between inherited pattern and personal reality has completely dissolved. I remember the moment this landed for me with full clarity. I was sitting with a client, a brilliant, capable, deeply committed woman who had been trying to break through a significant financial ceiling for years. And as we traced her money patterns back through her family history, we found something that stopped us both completely. 3 generations of women in her family who had experienced sudden, unexpected financial loss at exactly the same life stage she was approaching. Not through bad decisions or bad luck, but through a pattern so consistent across generations that it could not be coincidence. It was inheritance. Emotional, energetic, completely unconscious inheritance of a family belief that financial security beyond a certain point was dangerous, that it would be taken away, that it was safer not to have it and lose it. She had never consciously adopted that belief, but she had been living it faithfully, consistently, for years, because it was encoded in her family system long before she was born. And here is the thing that I want you to really hear right now. In the next block, we are going to go deeper into exactly how these generational patterns operate, and I am going to show you the 3 most common generational money blocks that Hellinger's work consistently uncovers. Because once you know which pattern is running your financial life, everything about how you approach the healing changes. Stay with me, because recognizing your pattern is the beginning of breaking it. So now we have established something that I think is both deeply confronting and genuinely liberating. The financial ceiling you have been trying to break through, the scarcity that keeps reasserting itself no matter how much inner work you do, has roots that go far deeper than your own beliefs, your own mindset, or your own personal history with money. It is generational, it is inherited, and it has been running in the background of your financial life with a consistency and a precision that no amount of surface level work was ever going to touch. But now I want to get specific, because understanding that generational patterns exist is one thing. Understanding exactly how they operate, the precise mechanism by which your ancestors' relationship with money becomes your financial reality, that is where this teaching becomes something you can actually work with. So let me explain how this works. Hellinger's Family Constellations work is built on a foundational insight that I find both scientifically fascinating and deeply intuitive once you hear it. Family systems, the networks of relationships, experiences, traumas, and beliefs that connect generations, operate according to their own internal logic, their own rules, their own invisible but completely consistent laws of loyalty and belonging. And one of the most powerful of those laws is this: members of a family system unconsciously repeat the unresolved experiences of those who came before them, not deliberately, not consciously, but as an act of deep, unconscious loyalty to the family system. As if the psyche is saying, what happened to them matters. What they carried matters. And I will carry it too, to honor their experience and keep them connected to the family story. In financial terms, this means that if your grandparents experienced genuine poverty, real, survival-level scarcity that left a deep emotional imprint on the family system, that experience does not simply end with them. It echoes forward. It gets carried by the next generation, and the next, not as a conscious belief, but as an emotional inheritance. A felt sense of financial reality that predates any personal experience you have ever had with money. And here is what makes this so particularly insidious in the context of manifestation and law of attraction work. Most of the inner work we do, the belief shifting, the mindset work, the affirmations, the visualizations, operates at the level of personal experience. It addresses the beliefs you formed in your own lifetime through your own experiences, your own conditioning, your own relationship with money. But generational patterns operate at a completely different level. They are pre-personal. They exist in the family system before you even arrive in it. And they express themselves not as thoughts you can easily identify and examine, but as a felt sense of reality that is so deep, so embodied, so woven into your sense of self that it feels like the truth about who you are and what is possible for you. Which is why you can do years of personal mindset work and still hit the same financial ceiling. Not because the work is not real or not valuable, but because you have been working at the personal level on a pattern that lives at the generational level. I saw this so clearly in my own family history. When I began to look honestly at the financial patterns across generations, not just my own experience, but my parents, my grandparents. Further back, I started to see something that I had never connected before. A recurring theme around money that showed up with remarkable consistency across generations. Not the same circumstances, the external details were different, but the same emotional relationship with financial abundance, the same invisible ceiling, the same pattern of getting close to a genuine breakthrough and then pulling back. It was not my pattern, it was my family's pattern, and I had inherited it as faithfully and as unconsciously as I had inherited the color of my eyes. And here is what I want you to understand about how these patterns actually show up in your daily financial life, because they are rarely obvious. They do not announce themselves as generational trauma or ancestral inheritance. They show up as completely ordinary, completely personal feeling experiences. They show up as the financial decision that makes complete sense in the moment but pulls you back to exactly where you started, as the opportunity that appears and then mysteriously falls through at the last minute, as the income that rises to a certain level and then, through a series of seemingly unrelated circumstances, returns to the familiar baseline, as the deep, quiet, almost physical resistance that activates every time genuine financial expansion becomes available. These are not random. These are not bad luck. These are the generational pattern expressing itself through your present-day financial reality as faithfully and as precisely as it has expressed itself through every generation before you. Now, and this is the moment I promised you at the end of the last block, I want to show you the 3 most common generational money patterns that Hellinger's work consistently uncovers, because identifying which one is operating in your family system is the first and most important step toward breaking it. In our next block, we go there. And I promise you, when you hear these 3 patterns, something is going to click. Something that explains years of financial frustration in a way that nothing else has quite managed to explain before. Stay with me. So here we are, the moment I promised you at the end of the last block. The 3 most common generational money patterns that Hellinger's Family Constellations work consistently uncovers, described with enough specificity that you will recognize yourself in at least one of them. And I want to say something before we go into these. Recognition is not blame. Understanding that you inherited a pattern is not an indictment of your family. Your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors, they did the best they could with what they had. They survived. They loved. They passed down what they knew. And some of what they passed down was fear, was scarcity, was a relationship with money that made complete sense in the context of their lives, but that no longer serves yours. Recognizing the pattern is an act of compassion for them and for yourself. Pattern 1, the survival ceiling. This is the most common generational money pattern and the one I see most frequently in clients who grew up in families that experienced genuine financial hardship. The pattern looks like this. You can build income, you can create stability, you can even achieve a level of financial comfort that your parents never had. But beyond a certain point, a point that often corresponds unconsciously to the maximum financial safety your family ever experienced, something pulls you back. Not through dramatic failure, through a series of small, seemingly unrelated circumstances that quietly return your financial reality to the familiar baseline, an unexpected expense, a deal that falls through, a decision that made sense at the time but cost more than it should have. The unconscious message running underneath all of it is this: going beyond what my family had feels like a betrayal of where I come from. Financial success beyond the family ceiling activates a deep, unconscious loyalty, as if abundance is something you need permission from your ancestors to have. Pattern 2, the money equals loss pattern. This pattern shows up in families where financial gain was consistently followed by loss, through economic crises, through war, through circumstances that taught the family system that money is fundamentally unsafe. That having it only means you have something to lose. It expresses itself as a deep subconscious resistance to accumulating wealth. You earn it and spend it. You build it and something happens to take it away. You attract financial opportunity and find reasons, perfectly logical, completely convincing reasons, to not fully commit to it. Because somewhere in the family system, the belief is encoded. The more you have, the more there is to lose. Pattern 3, the unworthiness inheritance. This is perhaps the most painful of the 3 patterns and the most common in families where shame, social exclusion, or a sense of being fundamentally less than was part of the family experience. It shows up as a deep, pre-personal feeling of not deserving abundance. Not as a thought you can easily identify and challenge, but as a felt sense of financial unworthiness that predates any personal experience you have ever had. It expresses itself as chronic undercharging, chronic overgiving, and a persistent inability to receive financial abundance even when it is directly available, as if accepting more than a certain amount would somehow confirm something shameful about who you are or where you come from. So, which one resonates? Which pattern feels like it has been quietly running your financial life? Take a moment with that, because that recognition, that honest, Clear identification of the inherited pattern is the foundation of everything that comes next. And what comes next is the part I promised you at the very beginning of this video. The practical ritual, the specific step-by-step practice for breaking the generational pattern, not through years of therapy, not through complicated ancestral healing work, but through something you can do today, alone, in the quiet of your own space. That is exactly where we are going in our final. This is the moment this entire conversation has been building toward. You now know where the pattern came from. You understand how it operates, and you have identified which generational money block has been quietly running your financial reality, perhaps for longer than you have been alive. Now we break it. And I want to be clear about what this ritual is and what it is not. It is not a magic fix. It is not a one-time practice that erases decades of generational programming in a single session. What it is, and what I have found it to be, both in my own experience and in the experience of clients I have guided through it, is a powerful, intentional act of conscious interruption. A deliberate moment where you step out of the inherited story and choose, with full awareness, to write a different one. Here is the ritual. Step by step. Do this in a quiet space where you will not be interrupted. You will need a pen, paper, and about 20 minutes. Step 1. Acknowledge the pattern. Sit quietly and write at the top of your page, "This pattern does not belong to me." Then below it, write the name of the generational pattern you identified, the survival ceiling, the money equals loss pattern, or the unworthiness inheritance. Write it clearly. Name it directly, because naming it is the first act of separation between you and the inherited story. Step 2. Trace it back. Below the pattern name, write the names of the family members you can identify who carried this pattern before you. Your parents. Your grandparents. Further back if you know. You do not need to know the full history. Just acknowledge that this pattern existed before you arrived. Right. I see you. I understand why you carried this. And I honor your experience. This is not about blame. This is about recognition. Hellinger was very clear that healing generational patterns requires first acknowledging the people who carried them, not erasing them, not rejecting them, but seeing them clearly and honoring their experience as real and valid in the context of their lives. Step 3. The declaration of separation. This is the most powerful part of the ritual. On a new line, write the following and mean it as completely as you can. I honor what you carried. I love you. And I am choosing, with full respect for your journey, to carry something different. The scarcity stops with me. The pattern ends in my generation. I release it back to the past where it belongs, and I step forward into my own financial story. Read this out loud. Slowly. Let it land in your body, not just your mind. If emotion comes, let it. Grief, gratitude, relief, all of it is part of the release. Step 4. The new inheritance. Now on a fresh page, write the financial story you are choosing to begin with your generation, not as an affirmation you are forcing yourself to believe, but as a genuine conscious declaration of what you are now available for. Write it in the present tense. Write it as if it is already the truth of your financial identity. Something like, in my generation, money flows freely and safely. Abundance is available and welcomed. Financial freedom is my natural state. Write it in your own words. Make it personal. Make it true for the version of you that exists on the other side of this pattern. Step 5. The physical release. Take the first page, the one with the pattern, the family names, the acknowledgement, and fold it. Hold it in your hands for a moment. Feel the weight of what it represents. And then, safely, burn it, tear it into pieces, or bury it outside. The physical act of release matters. It signals to your nervous system, to your subconscious, to the family system itself that something has consciously shifted. Keep the second page, the new inheritance. Put it somewhere you will see it. This ritual will not change everything overnight, but it will change something, immediately, tangibly, and in a direction that compounds with every conscious choice you make from this moment forward. Because here is what I know from everything Hellinger's work has taught me, from my own generational healing journey, and from watching clients step into financial realities that their family systems had never touched. The pattern only has power while it remains unconscious. The moment you see it clearly, name it honestly, honor it with compassion, and consciously choose something different, you have already begun to break it. And that breaking, that single, courageous act of conscious separation from an inherited story, is where your real financial freedom begins. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end of this video. It truly means the world to me, and I hope this conversation brought you something real, something you can carry with you starting today. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel. We have so much more to explore together. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. You never know whose life you might change with a single video. The books that have shaped my journey and that I personally recommend are all linked in the description below. Go check them out. They are worth every page. And don't forget, there is a free PDF in the description on how to interpret angel numbers and equal hours. Grab yours. It is completely free, and it might just change the way you see the signs the universe has been sending you all along. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next one.